Let's talk about Dolly. This is a movie I had the opportunity to watch back in September at Fantastic Fest, and I believe it's one of the first movies I watched. I got to watch this from a screener, which luckily was provided. Thank you to the team. And I would love to see this in the theater with a group of people because I think this is one of those movies that is going to get a lot of reactions when you see it in theaters. So let's get into my thoughts and opinions about it. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and notification bell. We're going to talk about Return of Silent Hill, which I enjoyed, so get ready for that video. It's going to be a doozy. But let's talk about Dolly. So Dolly is basically a sort of like, I would say more like an experience than a film. And that's not knocking or anything like that, because I think it's an homage to the gritty 70s horror with a bit of a European accent in it, directed by Rod Blackhurst, starring Seann William Scott. And in this you also have Fabianne Therese. And this is a movie in which a woman gets abducted by a maniac in the woods that wears a doll porcelain mask and is now saying, you know what? You're my new Dolly. And it is just deranged. It is insane. I'm not going to get into the spoilers of it or the story because I think it's one you have to let itself unravel for you, and it's going to get crazy. This is a pretty gruesome movie. Let's start off with that right off the bat. There are not a lot of scenes in it where it gets intense, but the scenes in which it does definitely are super intense. I was a bit like watching it at night and I was like squinting at some of the stuff happening here, and I've seen a ton of horror movies, so this is definitely great when it comes to practical effects and all of that. The sound design is definitely what's going to get to you, the crunching of bones, that's all I'll say. But this movie is a great sort of like little experiment at times because there's some pretty interesting camera angles, camera movements here and there that really elevate it and make it feel different. And that's when you know somebody's really pouring into the craft, when they really go for it and just want to give us an interesting experience, right? And this is what Dolly is going to do. And I was checking to see if I was recording, so I'm just like this. I probably look weird as hell. But nonetheless, I think that that's really where the movie's going to shine. The story in itself is pretty simple. It's not going to feel like it's giving you something new that you haven't seen. You can kind of feel like you've seen this movie already. And that's the thing with a lot of slashers and all of that, but it is the accents that they put into it that's really going to elevate the film to another level. And I think with Dolly, they do that in a way that makes sense. I really do love what they're doing here, and you can tell that they are really trying to build the lore, trying to build this new sort of like quote unquote icon. I don't know if we can call Dolly an icon just yet. I don't think they've had the rite of passage with the people. We'll see if there's like a Terrifier like level they can go in, which can be possible, but I don't know, because there's just something missing there to really push it forward and feel different. I do believe that the movie was entertaining. I think it is going to be just a fun slasher. I don't know if everybody's going to really dig it because I feel like it's a lot more methodical with the way that it tries to expand its story, and it can be interesting and it can be fun and exciting, but then it can kind of feel like the same old. And I do love the design of Dolly though. I think it's an interesting one. It definitely adds to the creepiness of it, and there is definitely some tension that arises from here with the background of the woods. It gave me Chainsaw Massacre vibes for sure, and it is a movie that I think it's going to do good. I feel it'll do good. I think there's going to be a fan base out there for Dolly. I know that they're already working on a sequel apparently, so I think that they are betting that people are going to come and watch this. It's coming out in March, so it's a pretty good time for it to come out. Besides that, I think it's just the undertone with horror. So there's definitely a good presence of indie horror, I think, this year, which is great, with Obsession as well. And I think that's where we really need to see horror go back to, where we have been seeing these sort of like, not, the word isn't like the machine that is just trying to make horror movies nowadays with big studios and all of that, where I think that these horror movies really thrive when it is just a singular vision. And I think Dolly is indeed a singular vision. But I did love a lot about this movie. I thought that the first and second act are truly where its strength is. In the third act, for me, it kind of fizzled out and it turned into everything I expected it to turn out to and all of the plot points. And I think that's going to be a very, very weird thing for people to see. Whereas I really enjoyed the allure and the mystery that came from the very beginning, when everything seems disorienting and you don't know exactly what's going on. But once the cards are shown to you, you know, that's when things can either take a very sharp left turn and go in a direction that you're just like, I don't know how I feel about that, right? And that's what Dolly does for me in the third act. It doesn't really work all the way. And that's happened to me with other films like In a Violent Nature that I've seen a couple of years ago, and so on and so forth. But I think the first two acts of this, and I think the lore they build with Dolly is incredible. I'm always going to root for a movie that has practical effects as well, because I think it's such a lost art, and especially with artificial intelligence nowadays and all of that, it's great to see that it's pushing against that. So always going to support practical over digital. Digital's still good, but AI. So I enjoyed Dolly for the most part. I think it's worth checking out. Do I think you should run out and see it like as soon as it's in theaters? I think if you're a hardcore slasher horror fan, definitely do so. If you're on the fence about it, I would check it out in matinee. And if you're just like, I just don't really know, I'm okay with you seeing it on streaming, honestly. I think with the sequel, it'll be better. I think just in the likes of Terrifier, where I'm not a huge fan of the first film, but I know what they were trying to do there. And then I really liked the second film, and I thought the third film was definitely a big improvement over the second one and the first one. So I think we could see Dolly go in that same trajectory. They just need to get Dolly's name out there. They need to showcase what they can do, what they're about. And that's what they're doing with this film. They're just really trying to put it out there. And I think that there will be some improvements in the sequel. So hopefully they do get that right. Overall, though, I thought the acting was great. I thought that the story, the suspense, and all of that in that first two acts of the film are definitely where it hits the hardest. I think the third act kind of fizzles out. But overall, as a film, it works. It's a good, fun time slasher. Doesn't really try to reinvent anything that we've seen before. It's just sort of giving its own touch with the 70s grindhouse. It is very grimy. It is very much so gory, and it's going to make you squirm probably. So just know that going into it, it doesn't hold back. It doesn't hold back on anything. But let me know what you think about Dolly. If you saw it at Fantastic Fest, if you plan to see it once it releases in theaters in 2 months, let me know in the comments down below. We got a review of Silent Hill tonight, so stay tuned for that as well. And make sure you hit that subscribe and notification bell. We're going to a screening that I'm very excited for. I don't want to jinx it yet because I'm not really on the list, but I'm in a secondary list, so we'll see if I even get in. But very excited. If we do, you'll know what it is tonight when I make that reaction video. So stay tuned. As always, that's gonna do it for me. 50,000 subscribers. Let's get to it. As always, stay safe, stay positive.